Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting of Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. We have Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Vale, Ashmore, O'Reilly, Elmsley, and Councillor Dunn in council chambers, and we have Councillor Seymour Fagan on Zoom today. I will call the meeting to order. Ask if you'll stand and join us in the singing of O Canada, please. Thank you. Item 2.2, please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Item 2.3 is the adoption of the open session agenda. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Vale, that the agenda for the open session of the regular council meeting of Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 be adopted as circulated with the following amendment. Addition, item 14.1.14, being a bylaw to dedicate land within the City of Kawartha Lakes described as part of blocks 108 and 109. 57M-802, PIN number 63205-1041, LT, and PIN number 63205-1042, LT, Elkhorn Drive, former Township of Lindsay, now City of Kawartha Lakes, respecting part of the blocks of 108 and 109, Plan 57M-802, Regis Home Limited.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in anything on today's open session agenda? Seeing none. Notices and information by members of council. Is anyone on council? Councillor Elmsley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After a 2-year hiatus, the great Fenelon Falls Home Show is coming back, and it will be on this weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Fenelon Falls Community Center and Arena. There are all sorts of people there to show their wares, and I believe that the Barn and Bunkie will be operating in the community center, so chance to pick up odds and ends there as well. So anybody out there listening, please come along to Fenelon and visit our home show. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Richardson, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, this week is Earth Week 2022, and Earth Day is actually on Friday, April 22nd. I encourage residents to adopt a road close to them and do some spring cleanup. Also want to recognize the following city initiatives: the library hosting Seed Bomb or Earth Day craft program, plus the compost and wood chips available at the Lindsay landfill on Wednesdays. Asking all City of Kawartha Lakes residents to continue to make a difference by using reusable products in their households as we make a difference together. On another note, Pontypool's Nimican Park is hosting a cleanup this Saturday for the park and area starting at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few announcements. First of all, I'd like to thank the Omemee Swans Club for donating a very nice bench to the Omemee Beach Park, which will be dedicated later this summer, and appreciate the work of the Omemee Swans Club. They're a nonprofit organization in Omemee and surrounding area, so thank you to them. The Mary Street Mill Pond Bridge will be opening soon. Right now it's open to pedestrian traffic, and it'll be announced soon when the bridge will be open. We are waiting for asphalt preparation on each end of the bridge, and it'll be opening very soon to the public, and the city will be announcing, and I'll also announcing as well the opening of that bridge. The community of Pleasant Point will be having a spring cleanup on Saturday, May 14th at 10 a.m. And if you would like to come, meet at the corner of Maple Grove Street and Pleasant Point Road for that. And a couple more things. I'd like to thank members of the public for their letters of support and messages of support for me. Also like to appreciate the support that I was given in the 2022 Reader's Choice Awards, and I'd like to congratulate to all the nominees in that category. Much appreciated. And finally, I'd like to bring to the attention the April Daffodil campaign by the Canadian Cancer Society. Just to give you a bit of a breakdown of what this campaign does for people. Your help will make life better for people affected by cancer. Your donation will help people find community and connection, build wellness and resilience, and manage life with and beyond cancer. In 2020 and 2021, your support did the following: provided connection and support to more than 210,000 people in Canada through our online community in cancerconnection.ca. It provided trusted information and compassionate support to 44,000 plus Canadians through our cancer information helpline. It brought thousands of people to their cancer treatments, whether they require transportation assistance or a stay at one of our warm, supportive lodges. It also helped to launch the Centre for Cancer Prevention and Support, the CCPS, to take discoveries from the lab to the life faster. And during the pandemic, it also advocated on governments to prioritize access to cancer screening and life-saving treatment for people affected by cancer during the pandemic, which was very, very tough for people, having to wait for treatments added to their stress. And hopefully they'll be able to get their treatments back in time and on order. And also when you look at your daffodil, you can also think of many people who are affected by cancer. Many people have people in their life who have been affected by cancer. Certainly a couple examples. My late mother, I was with her for her cancer journey, and every step of the way to many, many treatments at Princess Margaret Hospital and Mount Sinai. And also thinking of people like Teresa in Thurstonia. Teresa is a hardworking mom, and she's battling cancer in 4 different areas in her body, and she's taken the treatments. She's a trooper, she's a warrior, and this campaign is dedicated to people like her who are really fighting the good fight, and I certainly look to her for encouragement, and people do. So I'd encourage you to take time to and see if you can help this great organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Riley, go ahead.
Thank you. The East Central Farm Show was held last week. They had a large turnout again this year because it's been absent for a couple of years. Probably hoping like they'll probably have at the Fenelon Falls Home Show as well. And Brad Bird opened a new real estate company in Lindsay yesterday, Birdhouse Realty, and used to be the former Mincom at the same location.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councillor Seymour Fagan, go ahead.
So I just wanted to let everybody know that one of our fabulous staff, Dan Roseborough, who's an engineering technologist within technical services, was awarded the Scott McKay Memorial Award at the Ontario Good Roads Association event last week that I attended. The Scott McKay Memorial Award is presented to the Municipal Engineers Association and Good Roads to the participant achieving the highest average mark on any two of the Scott McKay Municipal Technology courses. So a big shout out to Dan, who has done an awesome job. And obviously we're very lucky to have such a smart guy on our team.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we have nothing from staff today. Council minutes, item 5. I need a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the March 22nd, 2022 regular council meeting be received and adopted, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Richardson, second by Councillor Elmsley. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. Deputations, we have one deputation today, item 6.1, regarding report plan 2022-021, being the Elm Bob Cajun 218 Inc. applications, Arizona Heights Phase 2 development, and that is relating to item 10.3.4 on our planning agenda. So I'll welcome Diana Kay, I hope I pronounced that right, and Jason Delia, both from DM Wills and Associates Limited, and just a reminder that you have 5 minutes. Welcome, Diana. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you, I can. Just a correction there, Jason Delia is from Elm Developments. I noticed that on the agenda, and you pronounced my last name perfectly, so thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you.
So good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us here today. So as I mentioned, my name is Diana Kay. I'm a senior planner with DM Wills Associates Limited. We're located in Peterborough, and the consulting planner for Elm Bob Cajun. Today, Jason Delia is also here with me from Elm Bob Cajun. So we will be keeping this brief. We do not have a formal presentation prepared for you today, but we wanted to make ourselves available during this meeting to answer any questions from council regarding the approvals and support of this development. It is a 70-unit residential plan of subdivision known as Arizona Heights Phase 2, and it's located at 63 Dunn Street in Bob Cajun. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just ask for a motion to receive the deputation, and we'll see if there's any questions. Councillor Dunn and Elmsley, to receive. Does anyone have any questions for either of the deputants regarding this report? I know we covered it at planning pretty good. You gave us a good overview, but is there anybody that wasn't at planning has any questions? I'm not seeing any folks, so I think you're off the hook for now. We have a motion to receive. All in favor? And that's passed. So thank you for making yourself available today, and we'll deal with that report later in our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7 is correspondence. We have a correspondence, a request to extend the temporary street closing bylaw for the Lindsay Farmers Market relating to item 14.1.6 on the agenda from Mary Kennedy, Lindsay Farmers Market Executive Member. Just a motion to receive, and we have the bylaw to deal with later in the agenda. Receive, Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Ashmore. Any questions on that correspondence? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. Presentations, we have none. Committee of the Whole. Committee of the Whole minutes. We have no correspondence regarding Committee of the Whole recommendations. Item 9.1. Extractions from Committee of the Whole. I have 9.3.17, which was the Pleasant Point Park memo from Councillor Ashmore. And I have extracted 9.3.20, which was the memo from Councillor Elmsley, the application for Patrick and Candace Chartier. And that one's just extracted because we just need to tidy up the motion a little bit to better meet the intent of what council was doing. So I have 9.3.17 and 9.3.20. Are there any other extractions from Committee of the Whole? Seeing none, can I get a motion that the minutes of the April 5th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting be received and the recommendations included in section 9.3, save and accept 9.3.17 and 9.3.20 of the agenda be adopted, please? Councillor Dunn, seconded by Councillor Vale. Any questions? Call the question. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. 9.3.17, Councillor Ashmore, was your extraction? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I was just pointing out was there was circulated in your yellow folders, and what it was just the breakdown from the group that is proposing the retrofit of the of the park. The park is owned by the city, and really all they're asking for, they're not asking for funding right now. They're asking for cooperation from staff, which this motion I think will take care of. But just wanted to give you, Council and Mayor, the breakdown of the proposed projected costs of what it would be to transform this park. Now, a lot of the funding, they're going to be looking at raising their own money, so we may not have to have as much funding from the city. They're certainly going to work hard to get as much private funding as they can. So just wanted to make sure everybody got this and that it was made public here that this group is really all they want to do is just get this on the table and just start the process. So not asking for funds right now, just asking for cooperation to work with them, and they'll work hard to raise the money to get this done in the future. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor O'Reilly, go ahead.
Yeah, just through to Councillor Ashmore. This area, as you know, it's quite a low area, wet area. Is there any talk about they might have to drain it before, if they were to proceed with the projects?
They haven't talked about that yet. They've used this park for many years, and 40 or 50 years, so there hasn't been any talk about issues with that. But I'm sure they'll look at that when they get more into this. But right now, there really isn't much of a drainage issue right there. But I'm sure they'll cover all angles when they get down to the point where they're going to be making decisions on that park.
So Councillor Ashmore, just a question I have. When you spoke at Committee of the Whole, you said the costs were around 100, quoted the cost as 150,000. This memo you've supplied in our folder says 300,000, and I know our staff are saying that's not going to cover it. It's probably going to be close to double that. So why were you saying 150,000 when this note that you've supplied us with now says 300,000?
That was, and I can supply that was what was projected at that time. And I have that, 150,000, but this is what they gave me now. Obviously, it's more. But that, at the time, that's what they had projected it would cost. So obviously, it's gone up, but that's why that figure was 150,000. Like I said, they want to raise this money, hopefully most of it on their own. But I acknowledge that the figure is low, the 150, but that's what I was given back about 9 months ago. 8-9 months ago, it was 150 that they were looking at, so that's where that figure came from.
So the note, the email that you received at Committee of the Whole also says that this person who did the pricing for you, which I know is not our staff costing, so, this is not allowed for irrigation, drainage, or any services being supplied, and they're not proposing to alter any of the existing grade for the proposed field. So I think, we can all understand, and I'm just trying to bring this out because this is not a $150,000 or a $300,000 proposal. This is going to be closer to a $500,000 proposal, I think, when all costs are included. And I'm struggling to, we've seen the financial reports, we've seen the financial debt ratio that we need to do moving forward, and I'm wondering if we're giving residents hope when this is a project that realistically is going to be pretty hard to justify down the road at this time till we get our financial house in order, which we need to make some tough decisions to do. We can't even afford to finance what we have right now, never mind add new projects. So although, I recognize and respect you're bringing it forward on the behalf of the residents, I have to question whether we're just giving them false hope, knowing that down the road this is going to cost a fair bit of money and we're not in a position to fund it right now. I don't need a response. It's just comments where I'm struggling to support, to support the memo on that basis. So, Councillor Richardson, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, I too am a little bit struggling on this, because it's coming out at 70% on the city for sourcing. As I mentioned in the last meeting, I did go through the same exercise last year with one of the Pontypool groups for Prop Park. And we did send out a poll, and there's 320 responses on that poll over 2 weeks. And, it's a huge parcel of land in Pontypool that's very vastly underutilized. But, upon that list was a skate park and a splash pad. And, I actually had to go back to them and say, those are not realistic. items right now. We can't financially afford these type of items right now. And we have another park that's close by that has some similar amenities. And so we've come up with a game plan where, you know, we're refocusing. We're going to pick smaller projects to make that park have some new assets. And we're going to look at some fundraising and look through the 50/50 grant that the city does offer. So at this time, I too am struggling with the cost of this just because I've gone through the same process with a similar group looking to, you know, build their park. So it's just a comment that I wanted to pass along. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Ashmore, did you want to move the recommendation as printed? Is that where you're going, or did you have some different wording? You
No,
extracted it.
I'd like to just move it as it is. I mean, I'd
As
like to
printed?
keep it
Okay.
alive, yeah.
Yeah, so as printed, let's get a seconder, see if someone wants to second it, and then you can have a discussion. Somebody want to second? Councillor Dunn, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Ashmore.
Yeah, I'd just like to, I mean, we really should be listening to people. Doesn't matter whether it's Pleasant Point or it could be Normal, it could be Cobeconk, it could be Pontypool, anywhere else. I think we should be treating everybody fairly. Some people will look at this and say, well, look, we got Logie Park and we got two parks together, and I counted the houses. There's actually more people in Pleasant Point than there is in Logie Street, so I'm not going to go there. But what I'm going to say is that people want to be treated fairly, and they're not asking for money. This is just a projection. They may raise it all themselves, but and we're bringing up these things like irrigation, or not irrigation, but drainage issues. There's no drainage issues there. I mean, we're just fabricating things that aren't true. So just be fair to these people, and just all I'm asking for, and all they're asking for, is just that they be heard and that they at least have some work at something. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But they're just asking that they can make a proposal, and they can do their best to get funding. If we can't afford it, we can't afford it. But I think it's unfair just to shoot it down right from the beginning. I mean, it's worth a chance here, so that's all I'm asking for. That's all the people over there are asking for. Just some bit of hope that they can, after 55, 60 years, they can have a little different park and just utilize it, retrofit it for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Dunn, you seconded it. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, just very briefly, I have no objection to staff having a conversation with the people from Pleasant Point. Quite frankly, it's the only way we're going to get an accurate costing, whether or not the property needs draining. You know, I've been there many, many times. Water's never been a problem the times I've been there. But if staff, and I know they're busy, but I can't think of anybody better than our director to put one more thing on his plate. So let him have the conversation, and then he'll bring us back an accurate vision as to what can be done and what it's going to cost, and then we can have a serious discussion at that time.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor O'Reilly?
Yeah, I just want to respond to Councillor Ashmore. I wasn't trying to raise red herrings about drainage, but we were in the drainage business for a number of years. We drained all kinds of parks. And if you're going to have a park, you have to have a dry end, whether it's a Little Britain baseball diamond or all kinds of parks. We put drains in just because it's a basic thing we did to make sure that the structures were dry, and we weren't spending even near this amount of money in most of these other parks. But it was just the fact that you have to have a dry base, and you have to, if you're going to go down this road.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? You want to sum up, Councillor, or are you good?
I'm fine, thanks. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call a question then. Motion is as printed in the original committee of the whole. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Motion fails. Can I get a motion then that the memorandum from Councillor Ashmore regarding Pleasant Point Park be received, please? Councillor Helmsley, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Any questions on receiving? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. 9-3-20, I extracted. The motion that was there didn't quite capture what we had discussed here at council, so on review of the tape, there's a motion that I think is better what the direction was, and I'll just read it to you. That the memorandum from Councillor Elmsley regarding the application from Patrick and Candace Chartier, 21 Blue Bay Lane, Fenland Falls, be received. that staff be directed to proceed with advancing the subject property through the city's disposition process, and that staff be directed to offer portions of the road allowance to all adjacent landowners. That's what we discussed as a final. It wasn't so much what was here. So are you willing to move that, Councillor Elmsley? Thank you. Second by Councillor O'Reilly. Any questions? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. Planning Advisory Committee, we have no correspondence regarding planning. We have an extraction 1034, report 2022-021, Elm Bob Cajun 218 Inc., Arizona Heights Phase 2. It's been extracted by Councillor Dunn. Are there any other extractions from planning? Okay, can I get a motion that the minutes of the April 6, 2022 Planning Advisory Committee meeting be received? The recommendations included in section 10.3, save and accept 10.34 of the agenda be adopted, please. Councillor Vail, seconded by Councillor O'Reilly. All in favor? That's passed. Councillor Dunn, 10.34, go ahead.
Yeah, we had a brief conversation. I'll move it as it sits, as it's written, except for the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph. And I'm just going to separate that one, and then I'll bring it back as a separate motion. Otherwise, as printed.
So the motion as printed is approving the subdivision. We're just pulling out the fixed rate portion on the mandatory connection bylaw, rationale being that it's not really a planning recommendation, so we just want to do it separately as a council recommendation. So the original recommendation is the approval of the draft plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment be approved. So moved by Councillor Dunn, seconded by Councillor Vail. Thank you. Any questions on that? Councillor Elmsley, go ahead.
Isn't it the 5th paragraph, the 5th that we're dealing with, not the 4th?
It is the 5th that, yes, thank you for counting. It's the fixed rate portion that we're taking out, and we'll do that as a follow-up, yes. Any questions? You don't need to speak to that portion. All in favor? And that's passed for approval. I know, Kathleen, I'm trying to catch you there, but you're on a bit of a delay, so just be wary of that. If I say approve before your hand goes up, it's because I've got enough votes without you. If I wait, you'll know I need your vote, so okay. Follow-up motion then, Councillor Dunn, on that portion, go ahead.
Yeah, I would move that the fixed rate fees required by the mandatory connection bylaw 2014-225 for the existing properties on the north side of Bick Street adjacent to the development be waived. I thought you had a...
I do. Can I just ask you to say it's 214-255, not, you said 225, so 255 for the existing properties on the north side of Bick Street being number 2 to number 20,
Yeah, okay.
just for exaction, and that adjacent to the development be waived while the residents remain on private services.
Sure.
So if they do hook up, obviously they're going to have to pay the fixed costs once they're hooked up to services.
That's fine.
Are you okay with those changes?
I'm good with that.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dunn, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Will you second that? Yes, you will. Thank you. You want to speak to it? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's an entirely appropriate recommendation that came out of planning. I fully support it, and hope council does.
Councillor Elmsley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious as to the reason, not being on the planning committee, just curious as to the reasons why the mandatory connection bylaw is being waived in this instance.
I made the motion at the planning committee. The rationale that I used to justify going there was really that there's 7 or 8 or 9 homes on the north side of Bick Street. They've been there for some over 50 years. They're going to have a subdivision in their neighborhood on the south side of Bick Street. They're going to be going through a lot in the next couple of years. Most of their services are quite old, so the rationale is they feel several of them will probably hook up to the services when their services fail, or they're obligated to under the mandatory connect bylaw. We thought we would, the discussion at planning was really just about giving them a little bit of a break on the fixed costs while this subdivision over the next few years is going in on the other side of Bick Street. So they're gonna be in some turmoil there for a couple of years, but they fully support the subdivision.
Thank you. Will they be required to pay the $50 quarterly fee for not being hooked up?
No,
For
this
the
motion
fixed
is
rate.
waiving that quarterly fee until they hook up to the services. So they still have to hook up. The mandatory Connect bylaw is still in place, but this motion is waiving that fixed cost fee until they do hook up to those services to give them a little bit of a financial break.
Sorry, I can't support it.
Understood, thank you. Is there any other questions on the motion? Do you want anything to add?
I'll have something to follow up if you don't mind right after it's done.
Okay.
Other than that,
Call the question then, all in favor? And that motion's passed. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Dunn.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've now established a precedence, which I 100% agree with, and I'll be encouraging somebody from the prevailing side from 2 months ago to consider doing the same thing for the rest of the citizens in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. You don't miss much, do you? 11, we're over to consent matters. Consent agenda, I have several extractions. I have 11.1.1 is the Framework Development Agreement for Flato and Bromont Melody Homes. Has been extracted by Councillor Ashmore. I have 11.1.2, the FIPA Delegation Policy Update has been extracted by Councillor Ashmore. I have 11.1.11, the agreement with the U.S. Bank has been extracted by Councillor Ashmore. And I have the 11.1.13, the Martin Municipal Drain has been extracted by Councillor Ashmore. And I have the Fire Service Fleet Report 2022-001 has been 11.1.14 has been extracted by Councillor Helmsley. Any other extractions for the consent agenda? Which one? So the U.S. Councillor Ashmore's just advised me the U.S. Bank, you got some answers to your question and you're satisfied with that, so you can take off 11.1.11 off the extraction list. Thank you. And Councillor O'Reilly, I believe you have the consent. Go ahead.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Ashmore, that all the proposed resolutions shown in section 11.1 of the agenda be approved and adopted by the council in order that they appear on the agenda sequentially numbered, save and except for 11.1.1, 11.1.2, 11.1.13, and 11.1.14.
Did you have a seconder?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. First extraction, 11.1.1, the Framework Development Agreement, Flato and Bromont Melody Homes. Councillor Ashmore, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to the CAO. I have a couple questions. A couple of things first that I wanted to kind of point out. Thanks for the report. But the MZOs, I've had questions about these here. And what these are here are what they call EMZOs, E standing for enhanced MZOs. I could give you a couple examples, and I'll get to that in a second, but just wondering why maybe this wasn't split into two, because they're two different MZOs. There's one for Flato-Lindsay community, and there's one for Bromont Homes. Maybe if I could just ask that question first to the CAO.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent of the report is really just to give the public more of an update on progress with both MZOs and the resultant framework development agreements that we're working on with those respective parties. So that's why they're both included in the single sort of informational report.
Okay, thanks. The issue I have here, and I'm on the Growth Management Task Force, so they've asked me, it says, why is there not enough public consultation? And I'll give an example with these EMZOs in a few communities in Ontario. And if you know Cambridge, Guelph, I know Guelph quite well. I lived there for 2 years. But Guelph, Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo, it's basically going to become, it's the Quad City area, going to become one city one day. It's growing so fast. And there's what they call the Blair issue there, if you can read about it. Also, if you're in Markham and the town of Markham, it's not a town, but it's a city, but the town of Markham, and Richmond Hill. Their councils are very concerned about the development at the 407 and Yonge Street. You would not imagine how that area is going to transform itself. Anyways, what I'm saying is people are not happy that public consultation has basically been bypassed in these. It's not our fault, but it's the province here, in my opinion. These EMZOs, these enhanced municipal zoning orders, are being put together and approved by the provincial government, and it doesn't give us, and when I mean us, I mean the people who are directly affected, the people out there, they can't participate in a public forum. It really makes it difficult for them to comment on it. And they're asking me in the task force, what's my use here if everything's going to be decided by the provincial government? And we're on the growth management task force. We're trying to bring forward productive ideas, but we can't even comment on it because all the decisions are being made and we can't do anything locally. I'm just wondering, how can we restore the local decision-making now? Because it looks like basically one cabinet minister can control basically the growth in Ontario on all these communities, and it's really frustrating for some people.
So I'm just going to comment first, and then you can comment on the growth management study, but I'm just going to ask you, Councillor, to keep your questions. This is just the development agreement. We're not debating the MZOs. The MZOs have already been passed, supported by council and passed by the minister. So those are in place, they're done. So this is just a report on the development agreement that we asked the two land developers to commit to as part of that agreement by council. So I'll just ask if you don't mind for today's agenda, your discussion about the growth management task force is probably a good one to have, but probably not related as so much to this report. This is just the development agreement. So I'm just going to ask you to keep your questions regarding the development agreement portion of it, please.
I'll just keep it specific here. Would the public have any consultation process? It seems like it's bypassed here for this here. I'm not against growth. I'm not against any of these companies. They're great companies, but the issue here is that it seems that the public, there's very little transparency. There's no opportunity for the public to really ask hard questions about the validity of some of these expansions and some of these EMZOs, which is what they are. This is an enhanced MZO for this particular, for these two particular companies. They're good companies, no problem. But I'm just saying, how are we going to engage the public now and how are we going to gain their confidence and having their opinions heard about any issues that come up with these MZOs locally here?
Thanks for the questions through you, Mr. Mayor, and I do appreciate or acknowledge this is confusing, and it has been a moving target, I think, for the public to really understand the process or processes involved. And in fact, even just the issuance of MZOs and how they've been done and requirements for municipalities or local councils to support them has even changed over the last year. So earlier last year, MZOs were quite frankly simply issued by the province at a request from an external party. There was some notification to a municipality, not much more than that. That evolved to, because of the scope and scale of many of these MZOs, the province asked for local council support resolutions. And that was applicable to 2 of the 3 sort of MZO approvals that are in front of you today. But even early on, initially, the first phase of the Flato development, that wasn't prescribed. That was sort of just being talked about at the time, and you dealt with that particular phase here at the local council. Subsequent to that, not only were support resolutions required, but also it was implied that the municipality, in giving that support, had to do some local consultation. So host it at a meeting like this, in making your decision, reaching out to certain agencies or First Nations, for example, and doing those consultations. Though that step wasn't applicable to our circumstances that are in front of us today, that was in the latter part of these MZOs evolving. The enhanced MZO that you're referring to now actually is not, I believe, applicable to these particular developments. It's actually the next phase where the government is now proposing legislation that will allow for what they deem enhanced MZOs, requested locally, need to meet certain criteria, and have an added requirement for public consultation, et cetera. So that's kind of the quick synopsis in a nutshell. What's in front of you today are the framework development agreements, which really don't have a precedent out there. This is trying to, at least at the front end, get the commitments from the respective developers in some sort of an agreement that will run with the lands long-term to meet the community benefits and what you had imposed on them. The main one being follow planning processes to implement these pieces, and by implication, you would be asking them to go through the prescribed public consultation processes as they are brought forward. So indirectly, that's how you're applying public consultation, inclusive of right from the top end, which is our growth planning, to our servicing planning, right down to the individual land applications, whether it's subdivision, official plan amendment, or whatever.
I'll note, Councillor, on page 6 of 7 of the report under commitments with the development agreement, it says, obtaining all necessary municipal approvals and permits for proposed development and through active consultation requirements with the public, agency, stakeholders, and Indigenous communities. So that's why we're trying to put this development agreement in place that they're still going to be required to have their public consultations as part of the process moving forward. So you're right, the MZO kind of bypasses that, but our development agreement is saying you now need to go back and as part of the planning approvals, even though you've got your zoning and your official plan amendment, you're still going to need to have public consultations before you go ahead with this development. So that's what we're trying to hammer down in the development agreement. Councillor Dunn, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. We had a fairly extensive consultation or presentation, maybe it wasn't consultation, maybe program prior to these ever coming to council. I attended at least 3 of them. Where there was a discussion as to what the go-forward plans were. We certainly had some pretty good feedback from the public at council meetings, where some professional planners came and offered their input and their opinion. So to get this far, I'm frustrated with the process because council works very long and hard coming up with a vision and a plan, and it goes off to the province to get approved. So the province has control no matter who starts it down the road. The ultimate decision making is always with the province. Even at the point when we're getting into our local zoning, they've still got an appeal process. So no matter what happens, the province rules. This just sort of brings the province on side and gives the city an opportunity to actually put in some standards, some things that we want, that we believe will benefit our community, where we wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. So what we're seeing in front of us now is the first effort. Once again, this is going to come back when it needs to be approved. But we are telling the public what we're considering as part of our approval process, and it's a good document. And because it eventually has to come back, doesn't it?
It doesn't need to come back. We've given direction as a council to the solicitor and our legal on what we want in the agreement, and they're doing the negotiations, and as long as they can come up within those terms that council gave them, it won't need to come back. If they can't, it'll have to come back to
because
to
it's
council.
got everything right there that we want right now. And that was done through consultation. People that are opposed to things often, no matter how much you consult with them for 10 years and you still didn't give them enough consultation. I think it's been a good program, and I support the recommendations going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore, follow up?
A follow-up question through you to the CEO. As far as the appeal process, in this case, or in all these cases, do the developers not approach the minister, and then the minister makes the decision, and there's no appeal process at all? So the minister makes the decision, and that's the final decision? So there is no appeal process. I'm just getting clarification on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is no appeal process for minister zoning orders.
Okay, any other questions on this report? It's just, Councillor Helmsley, go ahead.
Just to clarify, this is a receive only.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm looking for a mover. The report CAO 2022-004 Framework Development Agreement, Flato Lindsay Community Inc. and Bromont Homes Inc. Melody Gardens be received. Councillor Dunn? Move that. Councillor Seymour Fagan, did you have a question or will you second it? Both? It's just to be received. So go ahead with your question. You're just seconding it? Okay.
Just
Okay,
seconding it.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Seymour Fagan will second it. Are there any questions? I'll call the question then. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. 11.1.2 is the FIPA delegation policy update. Councillor Ashmore, your extraction, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I talked with Deputy Clerk Watts there, and he explained to me about how it works. I was just not 100% sure on how personal information is, I guess I use the word shared within the city, because we're talking about Victoria Manor, EMS, human resources. I think what I was concerned about, and I'm still concerned about, is that people's personal medical information is, how'd you say, shared. And getting back to that word, shared within the city. And I just want to make sure that that's confidential and it never gets, disclosed. And that's what I just wanted the assurance that, because we're talking about contact persons, and I'm not sure what the definition of a contact person was who has this information of medical information of people. So I just wanted the assurance, and I'm sure the employee would want to have their information protected as well. So.
Yeah, and I think it is, but we'll get clarification from our Deputy Clerk, Joel Watts. Go ahead, Joel.
Hi, absolutely. So the policy presented today is just a refresh of a policy that's on the book, been on the book since PHIPA was implemented by the province some years ago. But we needed to update the wording for the various job titles that were in there. And that's for the reason that you presented, Councillor Ashmore, is that the personal health information that the city has is from a variety of different sources: human resources, the paramedics, Victoria Manor, Parks and Recreation. They all have some levels of personal health information. And this policy designates specific contact people for those specific types of personal health information so that they are siloed. And so that's why you're going to see a number of specific contact persons as designated and as defined under PHIPA for each of those different areas. Now, the city clerk's office is also designated as a contact person for all other departments that aren't specifically mentioned in the report. And that is a new update that we are bringing forward in this policy, because it wasn't ever specifically mentioned before, but it's possible that fire, for instance, might have personal health information from time to time, but the city clerk's office can be responsible for maintaining a collection, use, and disclosure. But personal health information is one of the most critically kept information that the city has, and all the rules about collection, use, disclosure, destruction, they're all very prescribed in the Act itself. So PHIPA has a lot of very clear standards that all municipalities and other institutions that might fall under PHIPA have to adhere to. And not only do we have to adhere to the policies under PHIPA, but we also are responsible under MFIPA. And where those two laws kind of overlap each other, the one with the stricter standards applies. So really the city is going to be following the strictest standards when it comes to the collection, use, and disclosure of personal health information.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions on that report? Can I get a mover for the recommendation as printed, please? Councillor Helmsley, second by Councillor O'Reilly. Any comments, questions? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. 11.1.13 is the next extraction, the Martin Municipal Drain. Councillor Ashmore, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll move as printed, but just to point out a few things here. I think that
So
from now on...
let me get a seconder,
Oh, yeah.
Counselor. If you're moving it as printed, then we have something to talk about. Second by Counselor O'Reilly. Go ahead.
Yep. Just a few things that I think the process should change a little bit, because these drainage petitions, they do affect the whole community. Whether you're pro-drainage or not pro-drainage, I'm on the drainage board. I mean, I know both sides, and I understand both sides, but in this particular instance here, there could have been other options that could have been used. I don't need to get into too much detail, but I brought them up. But I just think that the local councillor should have been made aware that there was a community meeting in October, but he wasn't. And I had to find out second, third, and fourth hand what exactly happened in this meeting. And that's not right. I mean, the local councillor should be let known if there's going to be meetings on this, and I wasn't. But anyways, I found out what happened, and things are going ahead here, but I just think that there needs to be a little more transparency, and there should be some sort of an avenue to, instead of having to engage an expensive engineer, why we can't work with Public Works and do some other things that have been done before that could be less expensive and less onerous for everybody involved. We should explore that, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Moved by yourself. You seconded it?
Yeah, we've discussed updating the Drainage Act seems like ever since it's been in, and so there's always been all kinds of suggestions about what we should do. The difficult part is that we could get away without doing these actually municipal drains, but most times the neighbors won't agree. And if there's a simple agreement, most of them can, some of them or all of them could have been solved. But when it comes down to the unfortunate part is that none of the neighbors won't always agree, and that's usually why we end up with a municipal drain that sometimes is more costly than it should really be.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor is as printed in the report. We have a mover and a seconder. Any final questions, comments? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. Last extraction is Fire 2022-001 Fire Service Fleet. Councillor Elmsley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a number of my questions answered, and some of them surrounded the shuttle certification. And it comes out to somewhere between $225 and $300 annually that a resident can save on their insurance. And I'm just curious, how do the residents have to inform their insurance company that the shuttle certification was successful, or do we do that? How does an insurance company know that the shuttle certification has been achieved and that they should give this kind of a discount?
It's a great question. I don't have the answer. I can tell you that where I live, I get a discount of over $300 on shuttle certification. I've never had to inform my insurance company. I think it's an area thing that they know if you're within a certain area with the shuttle certification. So I've had the discount since I've lived there, and I've never had to let my insurance company know that I qualify for it. They've just automatically put it on my policy. But I don't know if you have, I don't have any other information for you at this time regarding insurance. The chief's with us. Mr. Jones, do you have any update on that question? Are you clear on the question, sir?
Yes, that's fine. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the councillor. Yeah, it's not, you can notify your council or your insurance company if you believe it's required. It is also posted on our city website that we are certified. So I'm not sure if the insurance companies look that up or not, but
Thank you. I know you answered a number of my previous questions, Chief, and I appreciate that. One thing on the age of the fleet, when we're talking about an individual fire truck being 15 to 20 years old, and it's necessary to take it out of service at that stage, approximately what mileage would be on a fire truck after 15 or 20 years? Is there an average, or does it depend on the area?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, it depends on the area. We like to rotate our vehicles to try to keep, within the city. So like Lindsay being, running most of the primary calls, their mileage would certainly be a lot more higher. So we would take that truck and move it to a lower haul that runs less calls, and it'd still have lots of mileage on it. But yeah, it's it could be anywhere, and I would just be guessing 50,000 kilometers on an urban rural truck would probably be lots.
That's, it strikes me that you've hardly broken it in at 50,000 kilometers, and yet we're required to get rid of them. It seems like a huge waste to me. And when I look at the report and I see that these two trucks were approved, one in 2020 and one in 2021 in the budgets, but then when we went out to buy them, they came in considerably higher than the budgeted price, and now the price has gone up even more. And I did ask you a question about the fleet and how much money was in the fleet reserve, and I believe you responded that there are sufficient funds in the fleet reserve to cover the purchase of both these vehicles, but that going down the road, we're going to have to put significantly more money into the fleet reserve. Am I correct on that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, councillor. Yes, we have the number in the reports, roughly about $3 million that we still have in our fleet reserve. That would not include the money that we've already allocated for those two trucks. Due to the fact that the backlog over the last couple of years has set us back, that we may be required to buy, maybe 3 trucks in the next few years. So there could be, we will require an increase to the fleet reserve.
Okay, well, we can have that discussion with council at budget time. I'm satisfied that, you've answered the concerns I've had, and Mr. Mayor, I would be willing to move the motion as printed.
Thank you. I'll accept that. Moved by Councillor Elmsley, second by Deputy Mayor Richardson. Keep in mind that modernization review, that report will be coming back in May, correct? For a council overview and decision. If we choose to catch up on our fleet, part of that recommendation is putting more money into our fleet reserve. So those decisions to be made, but this is, I think, agree with you, this is a necessary step to get caught up on the backlog. Obviously, the more we put these trucks off, the more we have to pay for them. So let's get them as quick as we can and try to get caught up. Do you have anything you want to add, Deputy Mayor? No? Any other questions on this report? Call the question. All in favor? And that's passed as well. Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I had asked a question of engineering on another report on the, actually I had 2 questions, and I did not receive answers to my questions.
That was the 11-112, the wastewater and
Yeah, that's
stormwater
correct.
discharge. Do you want to comment on that, CO, or I'll grab an engineer? I know we've already passed it, and it's just a grant that we've applied for, and this is the work plan of what we're applying for.
I was merely asking, there are several agencies who are involved in water and wastewater, like source water protection, and I don't know that I have the name right, but it's something like the mayors of the Great Lakes Association or something. And I think when we're dealing with stormwater and wastewater that is going to go into that area, I asked the question, do we do we share this with them so they can comment? And I was just asking the question because we have those agencies or those organizations, and I think it would be helpful for them to know, because I think, you know, what we're doing is good. We're trying to reduce the amount of waste that we're sending out, but I think getting them informed is probably a good thing as well.
I don't know who we have. You go ahead. I know, I'll just comment real quickly that this is a grant the province put out to all the municipalities around that water flows into the Great Lakes, right? So we qualified for a portion of it. We got some money, and this is our work plan of what we're going to do with it. So to say, do the other mayors around the Great Lakes? No, yeah, they would have qualified for the same program. Some of them got substantially more funding than we did because we're a bit of ways away, but I'll let the CAO comment on it. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to have to say you were right again, twice in one meeting. Wow. There is a Great Lakes strategy that's out there, and it obviously informs some of this, but the mayor is correct. The funding program came through the province. It was sort of a shared formula-based type, and it was asking the respective tributary areas or watershed areas to identify projects that would improve stormwater or wastewater that ultimately flows into the Great Lakes or southerly. And so in this case, the exercise that staff took was very much internally focused. We looked at what was on the books for the next couple of years and tried to align those with the objectives of the grant. And so that's why these ones are proposed. I suspect once all of the funded projects are known, they would be fed into that broader sort of strategy where there are a number of, as you mentioned, GTA mayors that are overseeing and looking at, focused on Lake Ontario predominantly. But there will be some sharing of information at that point.
You okay with that? Okay. We have item 12. We have petitions. We have none. 13, other new business. None. Bylaws. Councillor Ashmore, you had question 1416, but you said you got the answer you were looking for, so I don't believe. Are there any other extractions from any of the bylaws? Councillor Elmsley, go ahead.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dunn, that the bylaws shown in section 14.1 of the agenda, namely items 14.1.1, 2 and including 14.1.14, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. Item 15 is notice of motion. Oh, we have one bylaw. I got the finger snap. We got one bylaw extracted, 14.2.1, a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the city of Kawartha Lakes to be known as the Martin Municipal Drain Bylaw. That a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the city of Kawartha Lakes to be known as the Martin Municipal Drain Bylaw be read a first and second time, provisionally adopted and numbered. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Vail, will you move that? Thank you. Councillor Riley, you'll second that. Any questions? All in favor? That's passed. Is that all I need to do with that? Thank you. Item 15, notice of motion. We have none. Closed session. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the closed session agenda? Councillor Elmsley and Dunn. All in favor? That's passed. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in anything in the closed session agenda? Seeing none. At this point in the meeting, City Council will now go into closed session to consider the items under section 16.3 of the agenda. All remaining staff, with the exception of the CAO, City Clerk, City Solicitor, are now instructed to leave the electronic meeting at this time. As per our procedural bylaw requirements, I'm asking all remaining participants in our meeting today to confirm to me to turn on your camera if you're on Zoom, and confirm to me by raising your hand that you are in a private room. So we'll just let everybody. Who do we have coming on closed? We have Sherry, thank you.
Barbara, if you need her for the awards.
No, not necessary. So it's just Sherry and Kathleen?
I believe so.
Yep, okay. So I need you to raise your hands that you're in a private room where no other person can overhear the deliberations and your internet connection is secure and not publicly accessible. I acknowledge both your hands are up. Thank you for that. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the following motion? That council convene into closed session at 2:05 p.m. pursuant to Section 239, Bracket 2 of the Municipal Act in order to consider matters identified in Section 16.3 of the regular council meeting agenda of Tuesday, April 19th, 2022, namely item 16.3.1 to and including 16.3.4. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Seymour Fagan, will you move that? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Seymour Fagan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Richardson. All in favor? And that's passed. At this point, the meeting broadcast will now end for members of the public watching on Cogeco Your TV cable. The live stream of the meeting on YouTube will now be temporarily paused for members of the public. When closed session is complete, the live stream of the meeting will resume to address the remaining open session items on the agenda. Let's take a quick, we'll come back at 2:15, take a quick break. I keep saying 5 minutes and nobody ever comes back in 5, so I'm going to say 2:15, and we are going to start closed session at 2:15. Thank you. Okay, we're back in open session. We have matters, item 17, matters from closed session. Madam Clerk?
Item 16.3.1, that the confidential closed minutes from March 22nd, 2022 regular council meeting were approved. Item 16.3.2, staff provided information to council respecting city-owned property listed for sale at 381 Highway 36 Lindsay. Item 16.3.3, a motion is required that the appointment of the following member of the public to the Kawartha Lakes Municipal Heritage Committee be approved. Sandy Sims, for a term ending November 14th, 2022.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore, will you move that? Thank you. Second, Councillor Riley. Thank you. All in favor? That's passed. Go ahead, please.
Item 16.3.4, council approved the 2022 Accessibility Awards, Awareness Recognition Awards recipients.
Thank you. That's it for matters from closed. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Confirming bylaw, Councillor Dunn.
There we go. Wrong button. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Elmsley, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of regular council meeting held Tuesday, April 19th, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, pass number sign, and the corporate seal attached.
Thank you. All in favor? That's passed. And a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Seymour Fagan will move the motion to adjourn, seconded by Deputy Mayor Richardson. All in favor? And that's passed as well. Thank you all. Take care, and we will see you next month.